Welcome back to Creatives Chat. Join us as we resume our Creatives Chat with Peter and Jude in our after show convo. Our show begins now.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
wearehistorically.com, Conscious Brand Apparel, and
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
Everybody, meet Jude.
How has the 0 point living, just the 0 point knowing, how has that changed the way you live? How did it change your work when you were working in the in the restoration industry? Like, how did these things impact your day-to-day life?
Yeah, that's a great question. My mind just flashed through so many examples. I'll share a couple of them with you.
Yeah.
One of them is people come over our house sometimes. We don't have company all that often, especially lately, but they say, wow, we're coming into the Jude zone, the Jude in Asia zone. There's something about this that just makes me feel good. And there's this calmness, there's this acceptance level that is just organically here, because we're creating it. And I worked in the government, and we'd often have staff meetings. This is popular in corporate and government agencies. Get the staff together, and you make a plan for the week. And so oftentimes it was, not everybody wanted to be there, and it was like a little bit of grumbling. And my mentor in the biology world was brilliant, and he was a communication expert. And he really tried to get people to participate fully. And so we would rotate leading the meeting. And so when it was my turn, as soon as we started, I had everybody stand up and take a deep breath and do a little Qigong exercise and let go of their shoulders and just breathe. Just close your eyes for a minute, take another breath. Excellent. Okay, now we'll sit down and we'll discuss, right? Because when you come into yourself, then you could look at the people around you as your colleagues and people that you want to help and connect with and learn from and accept. If that person in the biology world, there were the people that were all about extractive industry, and there were people that were all about conserving natural resources. So it's kind of like, a mini version of racism. There's this judgment back and forth.
Yeah.
And so, the idea is to break that apart and just see each other for who we are. And I thought, well, at least I could set the stage with that simple exercise, And the first time I did it, people would pull me aside in the hall afterward and say, you know what? That was great, and that was the best meeting that we've had. And I thought, wow, I didn't do anything special, but in actuality, I didn't realize that I did.
Wow.
And so I think that everyday living and incorporating this consciousness into everyday living, and a lot of even hard martial art teachers have talked about this, sages of all kinds, of having compassion for others and gratitude for what we have. And so I feel that this is one of the foundations of Tai Chi and Qigong practice. In fact, there's an exercise, a common Qigong exercise, where you capture this energy, and then you can share it with the world and relax, and you do it with the breath. And so when I do it, I think about really connecting with the earth and the energy around and welcoming it into my center. I'm not just like moving my hands around like, oh yeah, I got this, you know. Wait till I push somebody. I'm going to have more chi power. Forget that, right? So I welcome the energy in and merge with it. And then I can emanate it back out, especially through my kidney energy system, which is my reservoir. So I can softly feel that come out, and I share it back with the world because I have compassion for the world.
Yeah.
And then in the breath, the center releases first, and the tension just washes down into the earth, and then the hands come down and finish the exercise, right? And so with that consciousness, you can do that with going to the grocery store and giving somebody a smile that could really use one, holding the door open for somebody, you know, just like you talked about, this just pervades everyday life, you know, why not live it?
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. And you know, the one thing that really just echoed to me was this radiation of love and peace and consciousness and oneness. And that really is like the pivotal kind of deciding factor, what you're in service of, yourself or life itself, is that the energy just it's what you said so eloquently, where it's like, you know, and you give that energy back, you put it back out into the world. And it's been a theme that's come up these past few interviews, where when we come into ourselves, we naturally want to like help others. I think it's just one of those things, like when our happiness reservoir, when our cup is filled up, it literally comes back to that old, you know, cheesy saying, is the cup overfloweth, you know, and you become that just source of just calm, of peace, of unity, of recognition, of learning, building community. Like whatever it is you do, it always carries around that essence and that aroma of just peace. So in terms of the kind of leading blockages to this, you know, you talk about your reservoir, you know, the kidney system, the dantian, like how does having blockages in that area or not even breathing consciously impact your ability to kind of remain in that effortless flow?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a big one.
That's loaded questions.
Yeah, no. Well, to start with, my news is that my wife and daughter and I have changed our last name to Love.
Ooh,
Legally just yesterday.
dope. Congratulations.
So, yep. So now my name is Jude Love, kind of like Jude Law, you know. So Trapani is my surname, and so I'm carrying around all this past limitation consciousness, and I don't even know it.
Wow.
That's what's trippy about the world today, is there's so much limitation consciousness that we just kind of accept it for, it's almost like the air we breathe, you know. And so what does it take, what courage does it take, and what programs have I had to run and clear in order to sign the paper that says, yes, I want to legally change my name to Jude Love? And you can imagine, like, what a cornball. This is so stupid. Your family's going to think you're crazy. The world's going to think you're crazy. This is just some new age hippie crap, you know, and all that stuff. So it's really a statement of, do I have the courage to move into this space? And I think it gets to your question of how do we do even a step of that?
Yeah.
And how do we overcome those overlays that limit us in our expression of our true self?
Mm.
And I think that that is the journey. That the journey is to let go of the things that are limiting us and move into more of who we are. And this is why I love Tai Chi and Qigong, is because that is the premise of Tai Chi and Qigong. So we want to remove the blockages in our physical and energetic fields
Mm.
that limit our chi power. And once we learn and get trained on how to do that, our chi power grows, and it's reflective
Mm.
of our personal journeys. All of us individually, like Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey, and you unfold all these things, and then you become a new being. You're resurrected, you're rebirthed into a new consciousness. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but I thought, well, why don't I have practices that really foster this very thing that I'm, passionate about in my life, and I'd love to see the whole world go in that direction.
Ooh, the limitations that we put on ourselves. I mean, I think that comes back to that old saying where it's, you are your worst enemy. And I always like to kind of tweak that, where it's your believed self is your worst enemy, but it's when we enter in that realm of the unknown and enter that process of unfoldment, then we start to tap into these honestly magical aspects of life where we're just overlooking the subtleties of this just great gift and opportunity. And I like how you put that in terms of really just confronting ourselves and questioning our own conditionings. That's huge, huge in my practice, huge in my teachings and instruction. And that's amazing that you've incorporated that into this, what people would really identify as just like this physical art. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to make a comment on that. It's not really limiting. It's not really that we put limitations on ourselves. I like to look at it as it's those limitations really aren't mine. And what I mean by that is that society gave them to me, and I accepted them.
Yeah.
And it's almost always out of ignorance. No one really, like my parents gave me all the things that they gave me, and they understood, only a small amount. Most of it was just kind of what they learned. And so we just keep repeating this. And I got these overlays from Catholic Church and public school, and kind of get in line and get good grades, and that's the key to life, and just work hard, and someday you can retire, and that's the recipe. That's the ultimate recipe. And of course, many of us find that, like, well, that's a bunch of crap. That doesn't really, that's not a fulfilling thing for me, and there's got to be something else. And but that is I think that's the stuff to integrate and clear. And that's no small task, because I mean, it's easier if you're a hermit, because then you don't have society continually saying, like, oh, you need to be competitive, and you need to be all these things, that kind of detract from a unity consciousness. And it takes, let's face it, it takes a lot of courage to go against the grain. And you end up losing, if you do that, you end up losing relationships. People fall out of your lives, your life. You end up changing, maybe where you live, what you do for a business or a job, or all sorts of things that start to deconstruct life. In fact, if you don't mind me saying, Carolyn Mace, the intuitive healer teacher, she's got this saying that well, I got inspired and I said a few powerful prayers, and now my life is deconstructing and falling apart, not knowing that that's what has to happen in order for you to get what you prayed for,
Yeah, exactly.
which is a new life. But you can't get the new life until your old life deconstructs, and then we all freak out. We're like, oh my gosh, I lost my job. How am I gonna, this is all messed up, and oh crap.
I love it. It's so true though. Like it's funny how life always tests us in these sense. And it's just not even testing, it's really just providing us the opportunities to experience these new things, to put our money where our mouth is and see if we're really that dedicated in our heart to these different paths. Because anytime I have a session, a student has a profound recognition, I'm always just give them a little warning before we leave. And it's just like, just a reminder, life hears you, life is assisting you, you're ready for it. So just know that you're going to be graced with an opportunity to really test it. And then it's always like, session just ends. A few days go by. It's like that exact same thing happened again. It's like, oh, how'd you handle it this time? And that's the paths that we can take in this life. And it's beautiful how everyone always comes to the same knowing of oneness. I find that that's something that really just is so much more than what any scripture or text has said, is that no, when we experience full blown the dissolution of self and then immersion with life and being, it changes the way everything is perceived. And I think that's one of the reasons why I already can tell it's like the vibe I get from you is way different than a lot of others, is because that's someone who's experienced it, who has lived it, lives it, and understands the superficiality of so much that we live in this world. So in terms of just even like, being a father in this world, being, a business owner, like how have you really tried to carve your own path in this spiritual development and recognition and all the good stuff? Another loaded one.
No, it's good. I was just thinking that it can be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
It can be a lonely ride, and I really trust the internal guidance that I get.
Mm.
And I told you, my wife and I use this connection constantly. And so 3 years ago, my guidance came in to leave my career job and just quit and set out on a new path that was hidden from me. And I'm scared of that stuff, And I thought, no way, no way, no. I'm like 3 years from government retirement, pension, land, and I don't like what I'm doing, and it's affecting my health negatively, make my hair all turn white. It's not good for me, but man, I'm gonna stay on the secure safety path. And my guides kept talking to me like, no, you have to leave now. And if you don't, you're going to have some health issue that comes up really soon. And life is going to take you out of the picture, whether you like it or not. And I thought, no way, I've been trained my whole life that this is the thing, and I'm being a good boy, and I'm doing it, Dad. And crap, I had to quit, and I gave my notice, and of course everybody that I worked with, but I said it and nobody said anything. They were like, I don't know, stunned or something, like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I quit my job at 54 years old, and I embarked on teaching Tai Chi online, and I started my own consulting business, and we've been doing fine on these new adventures, but none of that was shown to me. And I had to learn all sorts of new stuff and have the courage to do it. And so it's no small thing.
Yeah.
And my wife teaches a lot of people that are in that same spot, and everybody's got their own story about having the courage to do what you want, to do what you're aligned to do, and to actually live it versus just staying in the security thing and it being just kind of like vanilla, you know? And I think that Tai Chi and Qigong have really helped me. And but it's also that lifestyle and living it, and knowing how to soften and release tension. And when you're scared, you know, you can let it go. And when people point out those little things that I learned from my upbringing that are poor behavior, you know, we can have a whole session on that, about the over masculine and the entitlement and all these things that I took on that I didn't even know I was taking on, and haven't really helped me in the world all that much. I've had to come to terms with. My daughter has taught me a tremendous amount about how to raise a human being differently than I was raised. And I wasn't raised in a bad way. It was just that, you know, it could have been a lot better, and it was no fault of my parents. They were just repeating what was taught to them, and the beat goes on. And so how do you change these little things that equate to a big thing, you know? Does that get to part of what you were asking about, Peter?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it comes back to it brings it full circle in the sense of the cause and effect, where, you know, I find that the one thing that is always commonly said is the courage aspect. It's courageous to question yourself, to question the paradigm, to question what you were taught. And it's been loosely said here, and I just really want to highlight it, but I think the most important thing was actually finally listening to what my intuition was telling me, to what life was trying to show me. And I think that's one thing that even for yourself is like actually having the courage to entertain and fully listen to what your intuition's telling you is a huge thing here. And when someone's stuck in that doubt, that self-worthlessness, you know, this is, I guess, a discourse for the world at this point, where it's how do we overcome those fears where we can actually listen and accept our truth? Because that is just going to change everything. So, I mean, I guess, what's some insights that you have on that?
Oh man, I totally agree. And my wife and I have come to the conclusion that the self-worth thing is it. So if we as human beings believe that we're not enough and we're not deserving, it just throws us in this separate consciousness that everything just starts to unravel. It's almost like it's a breaking point. If you believe in yourself and you have strong self-worth, you kind of slide over on this side. And if you don't, you kind of slide over on the other side. And I find it really interesting, even something as simple as in my Tai Chi classes, I'll have people, my teacher, Master Wong, taught me this. Stand feet shoulder width apart and turn your center. So you spin on your vertical axis. And I'll show you. Can you see me still?
Yeah, you're good.
What time? What time should we leave? Okay, we got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll close with this. So turn on your center. So keep your head straight. And so people do this for the first time and they're kind of like, they're all stiff and they kind of do the head. They can't differentiate their body from their head, you know?
Yeah.
cartoon character. And so what I mean by this is, if you're relaxed and release, just like the tennis player, see my head stays in the same place.
Yeah.
You're relaxed and you can release the tension and the stuck consciousness.
Yeah.
You can, if you could do it physically, you can do it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually much easier.
Yeah.
And so as I help people do that simple thing, it equates to being able to do all those other things in life that we've been talking about. And so as one person practices, now at first people are getting down on themselves. They're like, oh crap, I'm no good. I should be more flexible. I've lost all my physicality. Oh my gosh, I can't even do this simple thing that this guy's trying to help me do. And so you let that all go. And just breathe and relax and just do it the best you can and move into that space of self-acceptance and love and softness. And over time, it's like it organically grows. You're on the path. You know, that's probably the most important thing, is we're all on the road to go in this direction.
Right.
And we all are going to have our own experiences, and it's going to be good.
I love it. I love it. It really is just the culmination of what this life boils down to in its essence. And it's just this beautiful and great gift of play, of being able to experience truthfully what it means back to fall in love with ourselves again. You know, because we're in that external journey going out, and it's always that return in. I just want to say again, thank you so much for the after show conversation. It's been a delight. Is there anything else you want to let the listeners know?
I think that this was really fun, and I hope that people could, look at Tai Chi and Qigong a little bit differently, to where it incorporates all this bigger picture if you let it. And I think it would be really fun to have another conversation and explore some of these concepts in a little more detail.
Ooh, I'm all about that, Jude. It's going to happen. So sit tight, listeners. Thanks again for tapping into another episode of Creatives Chat. Roll the outro.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.
One thing that Jude was talking about was like, and I thought it was great pushback. You said, hey, we set our own limitations, right? And then he goes, well, you know what? Those aren't really ours. We think they're ours. And I went, whoa, okay. I hadn't heard it that way. So I thought that was great. But he was saying, something about living in a world where without limitations, right? So, and I was thinking how I live in a world of all possibilities. But that mentality of anything is possible is this positive outlook in life, where your default interaction with the world is it only gets better and I'm taken care of. So what is there to worry about, right? So that just becomes this state of being. And also very energizing. You that was not a draining conversation at all.
Yeah, no, I was like enamored. I was just feeling it. I was like, let's go. And that's the thing is like we literally, I think between myself and Jude, we could probably talk for like 5 hours straight on just Qigong practices. Yeah, it's also like, oh, great question. Great question. It's just like, yeah, dude, that's all we ask here in Creative Chat.
Right. But I was going to ask him, have you ever mixed Qigong with tribal music? And especially if you look at the Native American, boom, 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 boom. And the way they're dancing and the way they're moving and the way they're flowing and they're going in a circle, and it becomes this endless circle of moving and flowing and connection with the earth and the sun and the natural resources, right? And you combine that with Tai Chi.
Qigong native. I could definitely be a conduit for that.
And you see that it just becomes this universal dance, right? That you know, even if you go into the African tribal, they're doing the same thing. You go into the Aboriginals, you know, they've got their rituals.
Fuck,
right?
dude, yeah, I'm thinking like,
and they tell their stories through their song and through connection.
Like, think of like Asia, Cambodia, Mongolia. They've done all that's how they tell stories, and it's South America.
Or Tibet, they have the Tibetan dance circles. Have you seen those? Also, a lot of them have to do with the harvest. And you know, it's harvest time, so they have their harvest dance. The Japanese do it. They dance around a bonfire, and they're digging. They're digging. They're throwing the seed. They're throwing the seed. We're digging. We're digging. And they dance in a circle, and it becomes this unified dance. And it goes on for hours as they beat the drum, right? And so to me, that really is what the essence of Tai Chi is that it becomes that in slow motion where you're aware of your breath and your motion. But I'm thinking that like it's practice in all of this tribal, native, cultural root.
Yeah, just root of our being.
But I mean, it's ancient knowledge is what I'm thinking, you know, like this is getting back to our roots. And when we're doing this, we're getting back into our core, to our center, and we're planting with the earth. But this is what they did all the time, you know, like the dancing and the celebrations, and that think about how they're energized each other, you know, like how that's what I see as anyway.
And it comes even more to like the what I've heard from other ET contactees, but also what I know of native culture and the whole concept of rain dance and, you know, dance for clouds or sun, you know, all these different things that they would do for wind. It was all about literally sending out the intentions of what you want through just the consciousness and the breath and the dance itself.
And it's intentionalized.
Yeah, but it's the ET contact one was interesting because I had heard a few different stories of different people where someone asked them about the weather, and they were at different channels, and they're like, our weather is always beautiful because we ask for it. When we want, because like we will it to be. When we want rain, when we need rain for these things, we call it forth. You know, but there's a union and a self-mastery of our consciousness where we can actually, where we as a whole dictate our own weather. You know, where it's, and for me, it just connected with all these different points where it's like, that's exactly what natives were doing. They were tapping into the flow, harmonizing their energy with life itself and evoking what they want through that joint will effort. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that we can dive into with this. So we're getting strong Jude vibes.
The aftermath of Jude.
What has gone on in the wake of Jude?